The Noctua NH-D15S is one of the best coolers around, only bested by the Noctua NH-D15 without that S in the back. And today we finally have the chromax.black edition of this cooler, and it is as glorious as everyone expected it to be. The NH-D15S chromax.black edition is available for purchase for approximately $89.99 or euros, which is around $50 less than the NH-D15 chromax.black edition, and on average $10 more expensive than the normal NH-D15S cooler. As is the case with the NH-D15, the chromax.black variants have an all-black coating applied on everything from the heatsink, the included fans, and the mounting system itself. In fact, the only surface that is not covered by this coating is the base plate, but more on that later on into the review. The main reason to get the S variant of the Noctua NH-D15 is the increased clearance that it offers, especially for the RAM modules of the motherboard. The NH-D15S has an offset design which increases the space between the heatsink itself and the graphics card, a thing which is important these days, as above the first PCIe slot of the motherboard there is usually an M.2 socket, which many times is hard to reach thanks to the massive heatsinks used by the high-end air CPU coolers. Anyway, before we get deeper into why this cooler has been expected for so long, let's see what is being delivered with the Noctua NH-D15S chromax.black. And we have a user manual printed in 3 different versions, each addressing a particular platform and multiple sockets. Then we have a metallic backplate, a metallic Phillips screwdriver, 1 tube of Noctua NT-H1 thermal compound, a second pair of metallic fan clips, a low noise adapter, and a metallic case badge. They are also the components of the Secofair mounting system, which includes mounting arms, plastic spacers, bolts and nuts. And please notice how everything is covered by the same all-black coating as the rest of the heatsink, because this is the level of detail that Noctua offers. The NH-D15S, much like the regular NH-D15, has a twin tower heatsink design and uses approximately 45 aluminum cooling fins on each of the 2 towers. However, in contrast to the regular NH-D15, the S variant has its lower 7 cooling fins trimmed down to almost half their usual size. This is done to increase the clearance for the RAM modules, and it is done on both sides of the heatsink to provide the best possible clearance even with systems that have RAM modules on both sides of the CPU socket. But more on the clearance later on into the review. Another reason to get the S variant of the NH-D15 is the noise, or rather the lack of it. While the NH-D15 has 2 fans installed, the S variant only uses 1, which reduces the overall sound signature of the cooler. However, this lower noise output will come at a price for the cooling performance, but again, that we will talk about later on into the testing segment of this review. The cooler uses a total of 6 copper-made heat pipes, and each has an outer diameter of 6 mm. These make direct contact with the base plate of the cooler. In fact, these heat pipes are soldered directly to the underside of the base plate. The soldering of the base and the heat pipes is one of the best methods to make the contact between these 2 surfaces. Not only is it a sturdy bond between the 2 components, but it also offers one of the best ways to transfer the heat away from the CPU surface and into the heatsink. In addition, at the top of the cooler, the heat pipes endings are completely exposed. Fortunately though, these are perfectly machined to look symmetrical, a rare thing these days, but it does help out with the overall look of the heatsink. The base plate of the cooler is made out of nickel-plated copper and has a smooth surface that reflects everything just like a mirror. A smoother surface on the base plate means that the spread of the thermal compound will be better and even. Also, it looks nice, and that's always a bonus, especially at this price point. The fan used on the NH-D15S chromax.black edition is the Noctua NF-A15HS PWM chromax.black. This fan uses the Noctua SSO2 bearing system, which is now well known for being one of the best around. Not only is this system reliable, but it is also very quiet. The fan also has a minimum speed of 300 RPM and a maximum speed of 1500 RPM. However, if you use the included low-speed noise adapter, then the maximum speed will be reduced from 1500 to 1200 RPM. Other features of this fan include rubber pads on both sides of each corner of the fan frame and flow acceleration channels present on the impellers, which will speed up the airflow and reduce the overall noise of the fan. The cable of the fan is plenty long to reach the CPU fan headers located around the CPU socket of the motherboard. In addition, the cable is covered by high quality sleeving and has a 4-pin connector for delivering the power to the fan. The installation of this CPU cooler is one of the easiest ever, and that is thanks to Noctua's Secofirm mounting system, which I will still regard as one of the best on the market. Not only is it sturdy, but it is very easy to work with, as you will see. We start with the backplate, which has the bolts pre-installed. You will place it on the back of your motherboard, and at the front you place the required plastic spacers over the bolts. Then you take the correct mounting arms and place those over the spacers with the studs into the middle. After this, you take the 4 metallic nuts and screw those over the mounting arms, thus tightening everything together. Finally, we get the heatsink in place over the CPU and screw it in over the mounting arms, and you're done. Now you can install the fan in the middle of the heatsink and connect it to one of the fan headers on your motherboard, preferably the one that is labeled CPU fan, and you're done. For me, this whole thing took less than 2 minutes. With the NH-D15 installed, we get to see how big this cooler is inside a regular sized system with a standard ATX motherboard. For clearance, the RAM modules have plenty of space thanks to the design of the lower fins of the heatsink. The space here is approximately 64mm, which is great. Moving on, the space for the graphics card has been increased thanks to the offset design of the heatsink and its heat pipes. The space available here is plenty when we look at the sheer size of this cooler in comparison with the motherboard itself. Before we test the cooler, you will get to hear how the Noctua NH-D15S sounds like, starting with its included fan at 0 RPM and then gradually increasing its speed to 100%, or in this case 1500 RPM. I am doing this because while the decibel values are useful, those do not take into account unwanted noises such as bearing ticking, vibrations, or rattling. With the included fan running at its maximum speed of 1500 RPM and the recording device placed at a standard distance of 10 cm away from the system and the CPU cooler, the Noctua NH-D15S chromax.black reached a maximum noise output of 31 decibels, which places it next to coolers such as the Be Quiet Dark Rock TF, which uses 2 fans, or the Noctua L9X65. The thermal testing is done in 2 stages, and the CPU used for all CPU cooler reviews, unless otherwise stated, is the Intel i9-9900K running both at its factory settings and overclocked manually to 5 GHz on all cores. The first test uses the Intel Burn Test V2 benchmark, which places a good load on the CPU, a load that is similar with what you can encounter in your daily usage, especially in modern AAA video games. And in this test, the Noctua NH-D15S chromax.black reached a maximum temperature of 59 degrees Celsius, which is identical with what the regular NH-D15 gets. Quite nice. The ambient temperature is fixed at 26 degrees Celsius for all thermal testing. However, the important test comes next, as I am using the FPU stability test found within the AIDA64 Extreme software. This synthetic benchmark places an unrealistically high load on the CPU itself, something that you will not get in your daily usage. However, it is useful for our purposes because it will push each CPU cooler reviewed to its very limit. And in this test, the NH-D15S chromax.black reached a maximum temperature of 86 degrees Celsius with the same 26 degrees Celsius ambient temperature. And for your reference, the NH-D15 chromax.black is around 4 degrees cooler than the NH-D15S, sitting at 84 degrees Celsius. The Noctua NH-D15S chromax.black edition is a great CPU cooler that even when it was announced, it created a great amount of expectations, as many wanted the benefits of the NH-D15S in a chromax.black flavor. The cooler can be acquired for around $89.99 or euros, which is around $50 less than the NH-D15 chromax.black, but it is on average $10 more expensive than the regular NH-D15S. The build quality is on par with the best that Noctua has to offer, with smooth edges across the whole heatsink and no imperfections into the surface of the matte black coating. The performance is great, especially since the NH-D15S uses just a single fan for its airflow. While you could add another fan to increase the performance, that will also raise the overall sound level of the cooler, so it is a trade between performance and noise. The Noctua NH-D15S chromax.black is a great choice for both a gaming and a working system. It offers a great performance and a low noise output, and in addition, the highly required chromax.black edition color scheme will match any system, especially those that have no RGB or flashy colors inside. If you liked this review, then you can perhaps consider subscribing for more, and also if you want to support the channel in a direct way, then in the description below you can find both the Patreon and the subscriber star pages of the channel.